grass. I love everything that is green. And then I say, do you know what the level of CO2 is right now in the atmosphere? And none of them have a clue. It's too high. It's too high. I go, do you know what it is? No, it's 400 parts per million. Okay. Yeah. Do you know where that needs to get to be the best, the optimum level for everything that is green? Because we're part of the green movement, right? And they'll say, no, I don't know, or they'll throw out some dumb number. And I'll say, well, if you study CO2 for a minute, you'll find it's the most vital element of all the elements in the atmosphere. And the optimum level for everything that is green is 1,600 parts per million. That's why greenhouse growers pump carbon dioxide into their greenhouses and double, triple, and quadruple the level, because when you do, every time you double CO2, plant growth efficiency increases 35%. So in a greenhouse, if you just double CO2 to 800 parts per million, your tomato plant will produce 35% more tomatoes on the same plant. I mean, but the optimum level is 1,600. And so you're cutting CO2, which is in reality, it's plant food. It's fertilizer for everything that is green. And yet they call their movement the green movement, the movement that's trying to cut this and hurt what is green. And they don't even, they're so ignorant on the topic. They don't understand when you get to 150 parts per million, all plant life dies. We're at the bottom of this thing, not near the top. And if you then study CO2, how is it created in the atmosphere? It's the oceans. It's stuff where we contribute a teeny little bit, but we should never want to cut our little bit. We should go, hey, any business that pumps out X number of CO2, the bigger your carbon footprint, we're going to give you tax credits, because it literally is helping everything that's green. A few environmentalists that are not wackos said, I was reading an article, he said, I hope we can increase the CO2 level to 600 parts per million or so. He goes, if we can, the Amazon rainforest, they'll be totally fine, because those trees will start growing so fast. Even though they're being cut down, the new ones will come up faster and everything. But I just wanted to give you a little detail on that issue, because it's not going away. You can never step down from an issue of saving the planet to something else. You would lose your followers. So this issue will never go away. They'll keep trying to make it more and more religious, so it's just emotional instead of factual. And of course they're willing. Don't be deceived, but they'll have 30,000 scientists sign on. Well, guess what? If we were to go through that list and see how many of those scientists are making money off that there is a catastrophe, you'd see, oh, it's 100% of them. Real unbiased science. And then you see the list of hundreds of thousands of scientists that say, no, this isn't a problem at all. And you realize they don't have anything to gain one way or the other, so they're just speaking the truth. And so, but that's a key one, because it will not go away, and we need to prepare to battle them and expose them that they're hurting the environment. They're hurting everything that is green, and they're hurting human beings, which is even more catastrophic, and we will not stand for that. They estimate 5 to 10 million people die each year in the world just from the policies that have been put forward by the environmental movement and have been accepted by different countries and things. That's not acceptable. And most of those, if anyone cares, are Black people in Africa, and that is unacceptable.
Well, Curtis, you started by talking about, you took some of us who were alive back then back into the 1950s, and just made the comment about how dramatic things are. And I think one of the observations would be the notion that we had a different thought process. We had God, of course, which created absolutes, and whether you were a good person or not, you knew you were supposed to be a good person. And we've moved so far away from that. But we also had training in terms of critical thinking. And now we have a whole collection of people who don't think that's a good idea. It's more important to be warm and fair and fuzzy and not be critical, and to be judgmental basically means just to be judgmental means that you're a hater. So we have this level of, I guess I would suggest the biggest change is in mental capacity, mental sanity. I'll use the word sanity. We've created a whole bunch of people who deal without reality. They deal with something that's not real. it's emotional, and that's massive. And of course, that's part of the manipulation. Anyway, just
Yeah.
I think you've helped us with that. What have been some of the reactions that you've seen to people who bring you around the country to speak, but also who do acquire the films and show them? I'm just curious what kind of impacts you've seen when people actually see something in a form that's entertainment and education.
Well, we're very thankful. God has blessed the film tremendously. It from the first showings we first started going to when we finished it, it was just what we had prayed for. It shook them up in a sobering way. I didn't want to depress them. I wanted to sober them. And then it seemed to motivate them. No, it has been, I've had thousands, literally tens of thousands of emails from people all over the country saying, thank you for your film. I love our country. I didn't know what to do for it. I knew something was wrong. Now I understand what's happening. And now I'm using your film to have showings in my home or whatever. Thank you for giving me for something to do for my country. And it just thousands, I mean, literally not an exaggeration, thousands and thousands of emails. I've been in hundreds and hundreds of meetings all over the country, been in 43 states, most of them 5 to 10 times each. And no, it's been wonderful. And that if here's the criteria that agenda will change your life. You have to have at some level where you think, I don't think all the change that is taking place is good. And then you have to be where you down in your heart, you love this country. That's the only two. You can be as ignorant as the day is long, don't have a clue about anything. But if you love America and you realize, oh, man, a lot of things don't seem to be the right, something's going wrong, it will change your life. And anywhere in between there and someone that knows a lot but hasn't seen something that puts it all together. That's what we said. We said our family, we sat down, we're working on this. It was 2 years full time, 10 hours a day for 2 years. When we want something that will be complete enough where when they see it, they'll know, okay, this is a problem. And they'll hopefully go, wow, I need to be more engaged in what's happening in my country. And that is what it has done tremendously.
Well, Curtis, we are about one team, one fight, and we're focused on the 2020 election, which we're focused on. We call it the 2020 fight because as we see indications of all kind of crazy behavior, it may be an election, it may not. It may just be a regime change by force or whatever. We call it the 2020 fight. As a graduate of your films, I guess I would suggest to people, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that at the very end, this is a vehicle for 2020.
Yes.
This is a vehicle for the one team engaged in the one fight. If our goal is to wake up evangelicals who think God will take care of things and that they do not need to get engaged in the political process. We're trying to change that mindset. We are trying any way we can to wake up evangelicals. The other target audience, frankly, would be Roman Catholics. We need to put a wedge in Roman Catholics' thinking. They can decide that they will continue to participate largely in the Democratic Party. They will continue to be driven hierarchically because a lot of wonderful Catholics have been driven by the value system in the Catholic Church. However, the Catholic Church is extremely political now for the reasons you've indicated. The political nature of the Catholic Church is an intentional result of the infiltration of the seminaries. So the other target audience would be the enormous Catholic vote. I would suggest Catholics are registered and are active voters. Evangelicals might not be. For the Catholic people, this particular film is an opportunity to put a wedge in their mind. If they understand the purposeful nature of Marxists trying to take down their country where they are free to practice their faith, they may be moved to not pull the lever the same way they've done and their parents have done. So this is the two targets are the evangelicals and the Roman Catholic community. And I guess my observation is this film could be a major tool for them starting right now to work their way through the year. I'm just curious about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because again, it gives you a little taste of all the issues without having to go on hours and hours. It's 90 minutes, both of them. If you watch both of them, it's 3 hours of your time. You will be an expert on what has happened to our country. You'll know more than 99.999% of the people in America. And then as you invite people over, one lady in Tennessee emailed me back. She said, I just want you to know tonight I'm having my 27th showing of Agenda in my home. And she goes, I make my famous fajitas that I invite different groups of people over, and then we watch the movie and just talk about it at the end. And I emailed her back. Of course, thank you so much for doing that. And she emailed back like some of the other people did. She said exactly, no, thank you for giving me something to do for my country.
Excellent.
I didn't know how to wake people up. I've given them books. They never read them. I've given them stuff before. And they go, this movie, people will come over and watch a movie. And so it's a great tool. I know God had me do it for such a time as this. I think it had a huge influence on 2016. I know in my heart, and I'm not saying that about me. God's the one that did something with the movie. I made the movie, but I'm like, what do I do? How do I get this out there? And God blessed it. And he motivated people like you and others all over that got copies and shared it and got copies. And every time we'd get those orders, my kids and I would be packing them up to send them out. And we'd be thanking the Lord. Thank you, dear God, for allowing our family to make some kind of difference for this wonderful country. So it's a great thing. We have a special thing on there right now too called the Election Pack. I think it's $99, but you get about 15 different things. It's normally about $300 for that same amount of stuff because I wanted to cheaply give people tools that you could wake up 15 people with that. Just think if you between now and the election, you woke up 15 people where they're like, wow, I didn't get that before. Now I get how incredible that would be. What a difference that would make.
Right. Let me ask you, if I might, you have mentioned so many areas, the schools, the churches, the community leaders. If you had one area that was greater impacted by what's going on by the Marxists, the jihadists, what area would you say was the most critical for people to, if they tomorrow woke up and said, I've got to do something. Now that I've seen this and heard this, I've got to do something. Where do I need to start? Is there one critical area that you can think of, maybe something I didn't mention, that you could recommend to people to say, here's where you need to start first because this is really the worst it's ever been?
Wow. So many, isn't it sad that so many things are the worst they have ever been? My heart personally is for young people. Everyone's isn't, but I can't stand what they are doing.
Agreed.
To twist the hearts and minds and souls of our children. I mean, it breaks my heart. I would say, first and foremost, if you are someone that still has the ability to influence your own children and your grandchildren, do it. Because you're responsible for them too at a certain level, where that's not for your country, that's for yourself. God gives us children and grandchildren, not just to enjoy, which they're very enjoyable, but to influence and to mentor and to disciple and to encourage and motivate to go do something that's meaningful and helpful and right. And so that's a key area. I think, again, just between now and November, I really think more than even focusing on one issue, if you were to get some of these films and focus on some people, all of us have a different circle of influence. Who are your 5 friends? I only got 5 friends. That's all right. Influence your 5 friends.
And the benefit of the film is you don't really know which of those 20 issues that you address in the film are going to catch somebody's attention.
Yeah.
For somebody, it might be children. For somebody else, it might be the influence in the church, etc.
Exactly.
And I think you include in the scope of the films the impact of Islam. So again, I was part of a wave. There was a wave back in 2012 that was built on your movie. This was in the state of Michigan. There were 3 or 4 people who banded together and got bulk copies of the film. We showed the film. We showed them in a Roman Catholic church. And that Roman Catholic church, actually, let me digress. You came in the mobile home with your children to the church. The movie was seen. There was probably 700 people watched that movie that day. And then people immediately came and said, I need a copy because I've got my own circle of friends. That's the kind of explosion. That's the wave that was created. It's so simple because when you hand somebody that DVD to watch themselves, they may show it to other people. And again, all the topics are covered. So you don't have to have a pet issue.
Right.
You have an orchestra of different parts of the orchestra. They're playing a symphony to destroy us, and people will see that. They'll be motivated by some part of the movie. That's
That's
my
right.
experience.
That's right. Because I hear people all the time, a different part of the movie is what they'll bring to me, like, oh, that really got me. And someone else will say something totally different. Here's the thing, too. When you do use the movie, then it's not you talking. You don't have to know all this stuff perfectly. It's these experts. Everyone I interviewed in both films were people, one, that love this country with all their heart. And they've been studying these issues their whole life. So, I mean, and so many of them have even died now. M. Stanton Evans and Phyllis Schlafly and John Stormer, these stalwarts that spent their entire life trying to wake the troops to wake up America. This is what's happening to our country. And so, yeah, the film just allows you to, you watch it several times first, so you've got a understanding of it. And then, and here's another key thing it does. It will help you not waste time on people that really could care less to begin with. If you show it to them and they're like, well, I don't have time for that, you realize that's not the person to spend my time with. But yeah, I promise you, you show it to enough people, X% of them will go, oh my goodness.
Yes.
And then you can have them come join your little group or be involved with you. If you're a good candidate, you're handing out stuff for, that you can help them, use them to help you get done whatever needs to be done right where you are.
Well, let me jump in before we get too far, because there's two questions asking key questions. Now that we're talking about get the video and show it, where do you get the films and where do you get the election pack? And I almost answered Amazon, but I didn't want to do that.
No, they don't have that on there. It's agendadocumentary.com, agendadocumentary.com. It's our website, and you can, and actually I encourage you, next week I'm starting just a podcast, a free podcast. It's just 30 minutes to an hour a week on key issues of giving you a deeper understanding of them. If you want to go and subscribe there, then I can send that to you when we start it next week. It's just, I can't travel around to everyone, but I've learned so much. I want to share it with others. But at agendadocumentary.com, you could get the election packs right there and our other resources.
Excellent.
And anyway, but yeah, it's
good.
So let me ask a question. If I'm on a budget, I want to get one copy. In other words, my comment is you can get one copy and start your own little revolution. So one copy costs me what?
If you get one copy, it's $20.
And if you buy 5 copies or 10 copies,
then they're $12 each, and then you get 10 copies that go down to $10 each.
That's my point.
Dropping. Yes.
So we would, now you're reminding me, we would get together a group of people, get a bunch of names, we would buy 10 copies.
Yep.
And we would get the discounted price, and then we would work from there. It is so doable, I guess is my comment.
Yes.
That's what I want to make is there's a lot of meetings this year on local issues. I'm not saying they're not important, but why would you want meeting after meeting after meeting on a millage, on a tax, when the country is at risk? If you could get this film into the hands of somebody who's hosting that meeting, or at least the trailer. My comment is our goal in 2020 is to raise the level of concern so people who are working together are not just trying to be a normal precinct delegate and get their friend elected. They need to understand what's at stake. And I can't think of anything better than a movie that puts the priority there. You can disagree. You don't have to go with it, but at least you had a chance to see what might be the highest priority of all.
Yeah, because it's just, I think anyone watching it, you probably understand things are serious, and they are. But the best way to make a difference is to each individually just do the things we can do, not worrying about the big problem, just focused on what you can do instead of being overwhelmed. And yeah, it's just these films, again, I wish we had time to go into every one thing I might read. We still have a few minutes, don't we?
Oh, sure. We've got a couple questions, but
yeah,
sure.
We're watching the clock for the the union, but we do have time, so let's go.
Go ahead.
Why don't you do the questions first?
Okay, we just got a few of them. We've got Robert saying that he was commenting early on in your discussion about Lenin and said that Lenin was a master strategist, but his Soviet Union crumbled, sorry about that, in ignominy, a disastrous mess. Your thoughts?
Yes. And that's what it'll do next time too. They don't care. They want power.
Right.
Of course, they say the reason it didn't work is we didn't have the whole world, and it never works, and it never will work. But if they can get the levers of control of the money system of the world, the economic system of the world, they don't care if you're all starving to death. They'll be living like kings. This isn't about you. It's not about working towards something successful. It is about power and control. And the environmental movement will give them the legitimacy to slaughter billions of people, and because we have to save the planet, or allow them to starve to death because we can't produce any more carbon dioxide. And so it's the vehicle that all of a sudden, it's like Karl Marx, he wrote the Communist Manifesto, and he had this plan. But then right around that same time, a man named Charles Darwin wrote Origin of the Species. And Karl Marx read that book, and he realized, this is what legitimizes what I am trying to do. God is not in this anymore. It is just evolution of animals. And he goes, now we can slaughter, we can do whatever, because it's just highly evolved animals. He dedicated his next book to Charles Darwin himself, because he said, no, this is the theory that now allows us to say, no, this is right and this is good. Doesn't matter if people have to die or not. What we're doing is best, and it doesn't matter if we have to eliminate millions and millions of people. They don't matter anyway. They're just animals. So those things, when they come together, but this environmental movement's the same thing. The communists saw, well, it's been quite a while ago, in the 70s, they knew this was a key thing. I don't know if a lot of you listening know, Mikhail Gorbachev, who was the communist dictator of the Soviet Union, and while he was the dictator, they were one of the greatest polluters of any country in the world, dumping nuclear waste into their lakes and their rivers. And the day he steps down from the Soviet Union, he moves to San Francisco and he starts Green Cross International, an environmental group, because he knew that's the wave. That's the new frontier. That's how Marxists will take over the world without anybody knowing it. We're going to package it all in lingo, sustainability, and taking care of Mother Earth, and all these things where we can get control of everything because of this crisis. It's a one world problem that demands a one world solution by a one world government. And that's what they say, and they knew that. And so that's the vehicle. No, so for the gentleman, Rob, that said that, no, of course it doesn't work. They know it doesn't work. They would ideally like to have about 200 million slaves to make their life nice and kill everybody else off in the world. They talk about this. They go about 200 million people's all, and you have a state of Texas barbed wired off and work camps in there producing the things for the elites, and everyone else is dead. And then they can pillage the resources of the world as if they think a little more is going to be enough, but it never is. And they will find out on the day they die, oh, there was a God and I was wrong, and I was on the wrong side of things.
All right, we've got one that's asking, what role did the Frankfurt School play when its members came to Columbia University prior to World War II?
Good old John Dewey, the father of government schools in America, brought the Frankfurt School intellectuals here, dropped them down at a lot of our top universities. And they stated, Willie Munzenberg, who was one of their leaders, he said, our purpose is, quote, to make the West so corrupt it stinks, unquote. Just to rot them from within with immorality. And here's, in fact, I have a quote. Wilhelm Reich was one of the leaders of the Frankfurt School. Listen to this to understand how evil these people are. He said, we as communists used to debate people about the existence of God. And after a while, I came to a conclusion that this was a waste of time. You aren't going to debate people away from the existence of God. But what we found was that if we could get people involved in deviant sexual behavior, the whole idea of God just disappeared automatically. Do you understand what he's saying? If we get these young people so immoral, God will disappear, because when you're doing what's wrong, you don't want there to be a God. You're like, I'm not going to church, or I'm not, because you know you're guilty and you're doing things you shouldn't do. And so that's how they said, we're going to erase God out of America by making them so immoral no one will want there to be a God, so they'll start by, oh yeah, there's no God, because they don't want there to be one. Isn't it? I mean, that's how that's from 1932.
Well,
That's
I think that's an indication of how much they're winning, because what you just said is happening.
It's
exactly.
happening.
It's exactly.
No, that's the thing you have to face. A lot of people, well, communists couldn't be. I thought communists couldn't be anything because Ronald Reagan won the Cold War and the Berlin Wall came down, and I thought all that too. And then I started reading them, and I said, wait a minute, why are we still marching in their direction if they don't exist? Why is every one of their goals being checked off if they don't exist? And I realized whether I like it or not, or anybody likes it or not, the stark reality is they are stronger today than they ever have been in history. And they have created they have accomplished the greatest feat that has ever been done. And it's this: they have convinced their enemy they don't exist. And so there's no one against them. Communists, they don't exist. So they have done the greatest thing ever in warfare. They don't believe, they've convinced us they don't exist, so they can do anything they want. And we'll just go, well, that's ridiculous. That's not bad. And so, but that's what's happened.
But the point too is, if somebody tries to just in a small way imply that they do exist, and people should be aware of that, it's immediately shut down. That's why a critical body of work like 90 minutes of uninterrupted, highly documented information is what it takes to scare the heck out of people. Because if you just give them one little piece, they will brush it aside because they're afraid to acknowledge. You cannot not acknowledge. If you sit there for 90 minutes, you cannot dismiss this. That's the point. Yeah. That's why it's so important that it's all there in one place, and that's our best shot as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. And then for people that want to dig in deeper, I'm getting ready this week. I had it once before, but put up a recommended reading list on our website of books that just document, they'll show you that what I mentioned in the films was just the tip of the iceberg. It was just enough to whet your appetite to realize we got a problem. And the body of evidence every year with some incredible books that keep coming out that are researching this show it's even broader than I painted it. Wow. It's really shocking. Stalin's Secret Agents, M. Stanton Evans, the last book he wrote before he died of cancer a couple years ago. He's one of the greatest researchers ever. He'd take 7-8 years to write one book, just studying original source documents. He has in there document, in FDR's administration alone, there were over 200 Soviet spies. 200. If you had one or two, that's a problem. He had 200, that we know as a fact today from the declassified documents, 200 communist spies in his administration. And one of them, something we didn't mention yet, but it'll show people how rotten this thing is. One of them was a man named Alger Hiss, and he was his right-hand man. He's the one that went to him with the only one that went to him with him to the Yalta conferences and all the World War II conferences. He was his confidant. And he's also the one that in 1945, FDR gave the job of starting the United Nations and writing the original charter of it and being the first head of it. And we know today as a fact, he was a Soviet spy. So they have been working for so long and they've never been removed. That's what a lot of people don't get, is they've never been removed. In the 30s, 40s, they were penetrating all through our government. And we know that now but there was never a point where we stopped and said, okay, let's get them out of there. It never happened. In the 50s then, Senator Joseph McCarthy said, there's 200 people I think are communist. And of course, he was just so destroyed. A lot of people, even on our side, think, well, he was a little carried away. Facts now show he wasn't carried away. His only problem was he underestimated the problem of penetration, and he didn't realize they were in such positions of power he couldn't even say something like that without him just being destroyed by the media. So,
well, let me make a comment, and then maybe we should finish up with the questions. Yeah, when you've been working this hard for so long, and you can see the finish line, if you have any energy left or any motivation to get to that finish line, you pick up the pace. You knock over things, you knock over people, you knock over hurdles. That's where we are at. Hillary was supposed to win.
Yep.
Hillary was supposed to win. Obama was supposed to rise into more international power, etc. So there are people who are looking at right now what's happening right now. They can taste it, they can do it, and they are going to be as brutal as it takes to cross that finish line. And again, we need to make sure that we have every legitimate legal way to stop them, because they're almost there, and this is their big year.
That's why the attack on Trump has been unprecedented,
Right.
because they couldn't believe they were fooled again. When in 1980, Ronald Reagan beat Jimmy Carter, even though the week before the polls had said that Carter was going to win by 12 points. When that they underestimated Reagan and lost, they say we will never let that happen again. And then it happened again with Trump. And that's why they were just unglued. They're like, what do we do? Because this guy is stopping all of our progress and trying to dismantle what we've set up. So that's why the attack is just unheard of.
Yeah. I think him along with Boris Johnson with Brexit. I mean, they're country first, God and country first. And how dare us for even thinking that, right?
That's right.
Yeah. One last question, and then we'll let you do what you wanted to do with the document you were about to read. Where does George Soros fit into all of this? Is he a big funder, or is he greater than that?
No, he's one of the key elites. Maybe sometime in one of your future live webinars we were talking about, I have a talk that takes about an hour and 15 minutes, but goes through from Cecil Rhodes back in the 1800s to today, all these key people. I don't mention all of them, but all the key ones, of which George Soros is just one of many. Most of them are behind the scenes type guys. He's one of the few that likes some attention. Most of them, like the Rockefeller family, a lot of them, they always tried to stay back. They were controlling things, but they didn't want to be on the news every night and all that stuff. And most of the super rich of the world they like control, but they want front men out there doing their stuff. They like just enjoying their sweet life. He's one of the few that just likes attention and rubbing people wrong and all that. So yeah, he's a key player in it and has been for a long time.
Yeah.
So one thing I wanted to read to you all, and I know there's a variety of people listening to this. I'm sure most of you love this country. You're patriotic. At minimum, you're probably God bless America type people. And then many of you are probably Christians that actually know Jesus and have a different relationship with him. But I read that this is a letter from a college student that went to Mexico on some kind of trip they were having. And while he was there, he became a communist. And it's a letter he wrote to his fiancée telling her why he could not marry her now, because he'd found a new love. And I want you to I'll just read a little bit of it, but I want you to see the mindset they have. And it sobered me, it humbled me, and it made me ashamed of myself, to be quite honest, because I am a Christian and I know I'm on the side of right. And I know there is a God and he loves when we stand for the truth. And I go, I don't think I stand for the truth like this guy stands for a lie. And just listen to this for a minute. It's so powerful. We communists have a philosophy of life which no amount of money could buy. We have a cause to fight for, a definitive purpose in life. We subordinate our petty personal selves into a great movement of humanity. And if our personal lives seem hard, or our egos appear to suffer through subordination to the party, then we are adequately compensated by the thought that each of us, in his small way, is contributing to something new and true and better for mankind, the struggle for world communism. There is one thing in which I am dead earnest, and that is the communist cause. It is my life, my business, my religion, my hobby, my sweetheart, my wife and mistress, my bread and meat. I work at it in the daytime and I dream of it at night. Its hold on me grows, not lessens, as time goes on. Therefore, I cannot carry on a friendship, a love affair, or even a conversation without relating to this force which both drives and guides my life. I evaluate people, books, ideas, and actions according to how they affect the communist cause and by their attitudes toward it. I've already been in jail because of my ideas, and if necessary, I'm ready to go before a firing squad.
Wow.
Are you that are listening, are you committed to the truth like that. And you might need to reprioritize things in your life. And it's never reprioritizing that hurts your family. Anything you can't do with your family, you shouldn't be doing. But there's lots you can do with you if you still have children at home. And you need to get them engaged in this battle while they're young, so they know there is a cause worth fighting for, and it is righteous, and it can change the world, and it's for good, not for evil. And so, but we've got to step things up in our seriousness of educating our circle of influence, the people God has put in our path, because the hour is getting late, and it is serious what we're up against. And once you lose freedom, it's so hard to ever get it back. And that's what we don't understand, because we have had the most wonderful life that any people have ever lived since Adam and Eve. I mean, God has so blessed this country where we have such an abundance and such freedom to talk and to do and to love and to start businesses. And we think that's normal. It's not normal. And it's nothing has been like this ever before. And I don't think ever will happen again if America actually falls, because I know what these people are up to.
Very nicely said. And you wanted to share with us some encouragement and some hope?
Yes, because you need it now, don't you?
We do.
Yes, we do.
Good. And this is one story from my family about how important it is to be faithful in the little things. Okay? It's about my father. And I love this, God, how allowed this to happen in my family. In 1961, my mom and dad lived in St. Louis, Missouri, and my dad was full-time getting his PhD in electrical engineering and working full-time for McDonnell Douglas. So he was a very busy man. My mom was pregnant with my sister, and the doctor had told her, you can't get out of bed for this pregnancy or you're going to lose this baby. She'd already lost 4 children in a row, and they said, you're going to lose this one too. So she stayed in bed, but she used her time wisely. And she started reading lots of books. One of the books she read was a book called Masters of Deceit, which I named my second movie after, to honor a man that tried to warn us. Masters of Deceit was a book written by J. Edgar Hoover, who was the founder and head of the FBI. He'd been head of the FBI for 35 years, okay? And he wrote a book in 1958 telling us this: Americans, if you don't wake up, these masters of deceit are going to take you over from within. He has a whole chapter in there in 1950, whole chapter on the church. He goes, we see them. My agents are seeing it. They're going into the seminaries. They're going into the schools. They're going into the Hollywood. They're going into the media. He said, you better wake up. And nobody hardly listened, except my mom. She read that book and it shook her up. She told my dad, Jim, you got to read this book. He said, I'm too busy with school to read this book. And she said, you have to. So he read the book and he realized, wow, I didn't know this was all going on in our country. So what they did, they got strategic, and I encourage you to get strategic. What they did is my mom would be home in bed all day. So she would get all the St. Louis newspapers and she would read the letters to the editor. And anytime one was written by someone that got it, that was sharp, she'd realize we need to connect with them. So she'd call them up and say, we need you to start a small group in your home. And for the first meeting, my husband's going to come over and give a 2-hour lecture on communism. And they did this one night a week, even though they were so busy. And eventually, with some other people's help, nationwide, they started over 10,000 of them within the next 2 years. But anyway, so my dad tells me the story. He said, I came home one night and it was pouring down rain and I was just so tired. Been in classes all morning, then working all afternoon. And I get home, and right when I walk in the door, Mom says, I got a meeting set up for you tonight. And he was like, oh, I can't do it. He said, call, cancel it, whatever. I can't do it. And so my sweet mom, is so persistent. She said, you need to go. You don't know who might show up. So he went. He drove across St. Louis in the rain. And when he got to the meeting, just a few people had shown up. But he was faithful in the little things. And he gave the 3 people that showed up a 2-hour lecture on communism. Mm. When he was done, one of the men came up to my dad and said, if half of what you said is true, we are in serious trouble. Wow. And my dad said, well, that's why I'm doing this, even though I'm so busy. They became good friends, and he started borrowing everything from my dad. all his books. He'd read everything. Within a couple months, he knew more about this threat than my dad did. And he came to my dad. He said, Jim, I'm going to quit my job and write a book on this. And my dad's like, well, don't get carried away here. He said, no, I've checked. I've got enough savings to last 2 years. So he quit his job as editor of a national magazine. He took his savings and researched for 2 years and wrote a book. He finished it January of 1964, but he couldn't get anybody to publish it because he'd never written a book before. So he self-published it. Now, everybody listen, remember 64 America. Of course, there's no internet. There's no credit cards. If you want a copy of his book, you literally have to send him cash or check in the mail. Okay? It's not in a bookstore in America. You have to tear the little form out in the back of the book and send it into him. And in 8 months, out of his garage in 1964, he sold 6 million copies of that book. And when Ronald Reagan was elected president in 1980, he said, I would never have been elected president of the United States if John Stormer in 1964 had not written the book, None Dare Call It Treason, the book from the man that came to my dad's meeting. It started the entire conservative movement in America. And I tell you this, people listening, you might not be the person to write the book, but you might be the person to influence the person that writes the book. You have to be faithful in what you can do. This country is worth fighting for. Truth is worth fighting for. And God's principles are worth fighting for. And we can't put this, to give this to someone else. Yes, we need to be praying for our country. And that's very important. But God gave us hands and feet. And he wants us to be a part of what he's doing. He, in 2016, showed us a great act of mercy by not allowing Hillary to be elected. And then having someone that, in my opinion, was a very unlikely answer to my prayers of, God, would you have mercy on us in this country? And he knew exactly who we needed. Someone that was a tough New York businessman and that would maybe do things differently than we would recommend, but he would stand up for America and he would stand up for us. And it's amazing to me still. I'm just blown away that God has just directed his path. A lost man that just, he's done more good things 10 times than what Ronald Reagan did. And I love Ronald Reagan. There hasn't been a president since Calvin Coolidge that has done a fraction of what he's already accomplished in 3 years. And so we need to be praying for him, and we need to be acting by educating others with the truth. That's all. As conservatives, whoever you are, conservatives, anyone that loves America, your duty and the reason you love America is because truth is important to you. And so you have to stand for it when it's being attacked. You can't allow people to be hung out to dry by themselves. If someone's being attacked, we got to stand next to them and let them know, hey, you're not alone. Thanks for standing up. And we got to be willing to take some shrapnel, or we're going to get to the point where the boot's on the back of our neck and it's too late. Mm-hmm. And we'll go, oh, I wish I would have. It's too late. But right now it is not too late. And I encourage those that are Christians, and this is just for those that are born again, you need to be living a life that is pleasing to God. Okay? He didn't save you so you could go play footsies with the world the rest of your life. He saved you so you could share the good news with others, and you could live in such a way that your very life, that the kindness, the way you're unselfish, would be a light for him of truth in this world. And we need to do that. This life is a vapor, okay? And it's going to be gone before we know. We all know it's just going so fast. And to have not used it wisely is foolish. And we have such a great cause to stand for.
Amen. Powerful, very powerful, and very nicely stated. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Bowers, you've been a gift for us tonight. We thank you very much. We're going to say goodnight to people in just a minute. We want to remind people that next Monday night we do have Claire Lopez. Next Tuesday night we have Dr. Steve Kirby, and we would welcome you back. Tonight's been very, very special. This will be posted. We would invite you to post and to use this webinar, as well as to go to, I believe it's Agenda
documentary.
agendadocumentary.com. agendadocumentary.com. Look at the trailer, challenge people to watch the trailer, and start the wave. You heard a wonderful story about individual people multiplying and multiplying their influence. I can't think of a better vehicle for you to spend your time this year with this vehicle. And again, we want to thank Curtis Bowers for all of that and for the sharing this tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate what you all are doing.
Thank you. We are blessed tonight.
Good night.